Bengals fighting for their playoff lives. They need to beat the Steelers. The Chiefs need to beat the Broncos. And the Jets need to beat the Dolphins. That's right. The scenario we're looking at for the Bengals. So, Connor, what gives here?
So the first thing I want to point out is the Ravens-Browns game is before this one. It's at 4:30. So there might be a little scoreboard watching where now there is seeding implications where if the Steelers, even if they don't win the division, if they win, they're a 5 seed, they play Houston. That's a pretty favorable matchup. Oh, yeah. You want to play Houston. But if they lose, they're a 6 seed, and I think they would play Baltimore, which obviously is a much tougher matchup. But if you're Mike Tomlin, does Mike Tomlin value resting his guys more than, trying to jockey for a matchup? I think he's one of those coaches that doesn't really care. Now, obviously, you want to play Houston more than Baltimore. But if you're the Steelers, it's almost like they have that mentality of, screw it, we'll play whoever.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I would think...
Because the Ravens are probably going to win. So then it comes down to seeding.
The last matchup for the Steelers and the Ravens obviously did not go the way that the Steelers would have hoped. But historically, Lamar and the Ravens have not played very well against the Steelers. I can't even remember if George Pickens was back for that Ravens matchup either. For some reason, I'm thinking his first game back was Christmas Day.
I don't know. He did not play in that loss to the Ravens.
So maybe you're right, and the Steelers are approaching this as it doesn't really matter who we play. Maybe they're confident about playing the Ravens, and they think that the last matchup was a fluke. That's very, very well possible.
I just feel like Mike Tomlin's one of those coaches that could be like, all right, we've been banged up all year. There's guys like, especially Watt or Najee Harris, George Pickens, whoever that are banged up. Maybe they value getting that rest more than trying to jockey and go all out for a seed. I don't know. As far as the actual game goes, the Steelers offense has really been struggling the last 3 weeks. They've put up 13 points, 17 versus the Ravens, 13 versus the Eagles, and then 10 versus the Chiefs. They've averaged under 300 yards in those games. Run game's inconsistent. Russ has struggled lately. Yes, it's been without Pickens for the majority of that, but they've fallen off. They've taken a step back the last few weeks as they've played better competition. And that defense, which has been their calling card all year, Dylan, they've allowed 30 points a game over the last 3 weeks. They give up 44 to the Bengals less than a month ago. They've allowed 400 yards per game over the last 3 games. That's 4th worst in the NFL behind Detroit, Carolina, and the Giants. What gives here? Pittsburgh has been stumbling. Do you see them coming back this week, especially with a little bit of a lack of motivation?
Yeah, it's tough. I think we are.
I don't see it.
I think we're looking at a scenario. It's even tough to give a pick here, if you want me to be honest. Both quarterbacks looked great the last time they played each other. Russ threw for 114 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Burrow had 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I rattled that off, and there is a part of me that thinks I don't have a strong feeling on a side, but there is a part of me that thinks maybe under here if the Ravens end up winning and the Steelers take, if you take it now at 48, it's probably only going to go down if the Ravens win, and they don't play their starters. Jamar Chase has just been a beast, yards after catch. There's so many things going on here against the Steelers. The Steelers still do have that intermediate and deep passing threat with Pickens, and the Bengals don't defend well against that, but I think we're just finding over the course of the season that is tough to hang your hat on that and say, that's how we're going to beat you guys. And anybody, not even just the Bengals. So I'm still sussy for Russie. I need that on the record. I'm still sussy for the Russie Super Bowl, but things are looking bleak.
I think so too. And don't get me wrong, the Bengals defense is terrible. They've been awful all year, but Joe Burrow, must-win game. He's somehow re-entered MVP conversations. That's how good he's been. They might not even make the playoffs, and he's 3rd in MVP odds right now. He's been on fire. I trust him in that offense in a must-win game more than I trust the Steelers in a potential lack of motivation in a spot where they know they're in already. Mm-hmm. If you're the Bengals, you come out and win, and you have a pretty good chance of getting in, I think, because I don't think Carson Wentz is any pushover this week against the Broncos. I think that's still up in the air. So Bengals must-win spot on Saturday. I like them to cover 2.5 here. I do like the under, though. I do like the under. I'm with you on that.
Feels like if you're going to take the only way this total is going to go is down, I would think. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in completions and yards on passes under 2.5 seconds this season, while being tied with Baker Mayfield for the most touchdowns on such passes. So even if you wanted to give credence to the Steelers defense that you've pointed out hasn't been that great the last few weeks,
Have not.
It seems like that Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow are kind of figuring out how to work around the lack of protection, especially in pass protection.
He took 7 sacks against Denver last week. Joe Burrow did. That's got to be better.
Yeah, I think they're going to make that an emphasis. I think the Steelers win this.
Win this? You think Steelers win this?
No, I'm sorry.
Nah.
I think the Bengals win this. And I would lean under. How do you feel about the Bengals' playoff chances heading into this week?
The obvious answer is you don't want to see Joe Burrow in round 1. You don't.
Yeah.
So you mean like chances to make it, or if they get in?
Yeah, to make it.
Honestly, Dylan, I think there's a very good chance they make the playoffs because there's a decent chance this is Aaron Rodgers' last game. Dolphins are starting Snoop Huntley again, which he looked serviceable last week, but I wouldn't bank on that 2 weeks in a row. So all of a sudden, Jets beat the Dolphins, and then the Broncos are 10.5-point favorites over the Chiefs, which they're resting everyone. But you mentioned it in our group chat. Is Andy Reid taking the week off?
No.
I'm with you. Bo Nix should never be favored by double digits, and Carson Wentz is not one of these, no shots fired here. He's not one of these Jake Hainers that comes in that's never played a snap in NFL football before, or a Tim Boyle. Carson Wentz was a good quarterback in this league for a few years. He knows what he's doing. So I don't think it's that far-fetched. I don't think it's as crazy as the odds make it seem to be.
10.5 or 10
ridiculous
or whatever it was, and obviously now we're not going to fully preview this game, but just as Bengals playoff talk, as all-encompassing, number one rule of show, fade the Chiefs as a field goal favorite or more.
Yeah.
Number 2 rule, you take them as an underdog. And to me...
Does that apply with Carson Wentz?
I think it does.
Oh, boy.
Points. Wait, so what would we make... I mean, obviously there's other people sitting out too. It's not just Patrick Mahomes, but you're not going to sit here and tell me that the Chiefs aren't at least a 3-point favorite if they're playing everybody. You think there's a 15-point swing?
I think that's insane, especially against a rookie quarterback.
But here's the counterpoint to that. Do the Chiefs throw the game to not have to face the Bengals? Because the Bengals are
I've seen that.
They're the only team that's ever given the Chiefs any kind of consistently given them issues.
The Chiefs have had this black magic all year. Field goal blocks, missed field goals, last-second field goals to win the game, last-second touchdowns. They've had the black magic all year, Dylan, and it would not shock me if the Carson Wentz and the Chiefs are playing well, and then all of a sudden there's like a game back-breaking pick six, or the Broncos get like a safety or something, and the Chiefs lose, but Joe Burrow's not being seen in round 1. That wouldn't shock me. That would not shock me in the slightest. Would you put it past Andy Reid to do that? Because I don't know.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of things that could go. I've been on the Bengals train. I said I think they're going to make the playoffs. It'd be very interesting to see, and that is a team I would not want to see round 1.
That's what I was going to close with here is you don't want to see Joe Burrow round 1. As bad as that defense is, this offense can put up 40 points without any given week. 40 points.
Against some of the best defenses.
Right, exactly. Like to have a passing game like that, and then Chase Brown's emerged as a pretty good running back in the backfield. You don't want to see him in the playoffs. So, they're 8-8. Defense is horrible, but man, they're still dangerous.
Bills, Bengals round 1. Oh.
NFL wants them in. NFL wants the Bengals in.